Local 4 News starts now with a breaking news alert.
We find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter.
And with those words, Jennifer Crumbley becomes the first parent in America held responsible for a school shooting. 1 count each for the deaths of Madison Baldwin, Tate Meir, Hannah St. Juliana, and Justin Schilling, whose father believes the impact of this moment will be immense.
This verdict is going to echo throughout every household in the country.
Thanks for joining us here at 5. I'm Kimberly Gill.
And I'm Pamela Osborne in for Devin Skillian tonight. It's an unprecedented decision that has implication for parents nationwide. We first brought you news of this verdict at 1:38 p.m. in our push alert from clickondetroit.com and carried the verdict live here on Local 4.
Since then, we've been gathering brand new information and reaction in the case. The jury forewoman, who understandably wishes to keep her name private, spoke about the decision outside the Oakland County Courthouse.
It was very difficult. It wasn't an easy decision. Lives hung in the balance, and we took that very seriously.
Was there something specific that really stuck for that you guys were debating over for that many hours?
The thing that really hammered it home is that she was the last adult with the gun. And that's where I'll end my comment. Thank you.
Outside of Jennifer Crumbley herself, the people most affected by this landmark verdict are the loved ones of those in Oxford.
Our Rod Maloney has been gathering reaction and joins us live from the Oakland County Courthouse with more. Rod.
Yeah, Kimberly, you know, the precedence that this sets was at the fore of everything. Everybody in the building understood that what could happen and what did happen today was vitally important on a nationwide scale. And certainly Greg Schilling, father of Justin Schilling, made that point today.
It's a milestone, and it feels like it.
As the parent whose child died in a mass school shooting, he wants to see them end. And Greg Schilling feels like today's involuntary manslaughter guilty verdicts against Jennifer Crumbley will matter.
The cries have been heard, and I feel that this verdict is going to echo throughout every household in the country.
The Oxford shooting itself certainly did, and in Schilling's estimation, the thing most missing from these tragic cases has been real accountability.
There has to be a level of accountability that hasn't been there before. It can't just continue living life with the uncertainty of whether or not our kids are going to come home from school, or are we going to have fun at the game, or anything. It doesn't matter what circumstances. And it's necessary to address it.
Schilling has been and remains the most outspoken of all the Oxford victim families, and he admitted it's been draining on him and his family. He was particularly outspoken at Ethan Crumbley's sentencing, and today he said he can now see a better road forward.
Moving forward, it's going to not necessarily be any easier because of what we left behind, but it gives us hope for a brighter future.
Now, we did not hear from the prosecution or the defense after today's verdict because there's a gag order in effect. They can't talk about it because James Crumbley goes on trial next month. Now, the man who was in the courtroom for the reading of this and was in the courtroom for much of this case is my colleague Sean Lay with his take on what happened. Sean.
Good evening, Rod. I want to show everyone this. I just got from the court right away. I wanted to see it. It's the verdict form here. This is how it looks. Checkmark, guilty of involuntary manslaughter as to Madison Baldwin. Checkmark, guilty. Involuntary manslaughter as to Tate Meir. Checkmark, guilty. Involuntary manslaughter as to Hannah St. Juliana. And finally here, checkmark, guilty of involuntary manslaughter as to Justin Schilling. I sat right behind Jennifer Crumbley when this was read to her. This is my cell phone video and view of Jennifer Crumbley being led into the courtroom moments after the court was told, we have a verdict. Her defense attorney, Shannon Smith, taking a deep breath, grabbing Crumbley by the arm. Smith telling the mother of the Oxford school shooter, quote, whatever happens, stay calm. Jennifer Crumbley said, okay.
When the jury reads their verdict.
Judge Cheryl Matthews then brought in the jury, 6 women, 6 men, all looking extremely serious, all looking completely sure of their decision. This is my view of Jennifer Crumbley as the first verdict was read pertaining to the horrific shooting death of Oxford High School student Madison Renee Baldwin, just 17 years old, a lifetime ahead of her.
We find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter.
Crumbley's head instantly sank, her body slumping over as she shook her head no, ever so slightly.
Regarding Hannah St. Juliana, We find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter.
With each guilty verdict signaling a massive shift, Jennifer Crumbley is the first parent of a school shooter, the first parent of a mass shooter, to be held responsible for her son's actions. Madison Baldwin's father stared straight ahead as the verdicts were read, prosecutor Karen McDonald embracing Baldwin's father soon afterward. Listen as closely as you can. Those words, "Thank you," Baldwin shaking the hand of lead prosecutor Mark Keast and lead Oakland County Sheriff's investigator Tim Willis as Jennifer Crumbley was led back out of the courtroom. Extremely steady hand over all of this. Judge Cheryl Matthews telling the jury today this was the hardest thing they probably ever had to do, and you could feel that weight and intensity in the courtroom today. Prosecutors have to do it all over again with James Crumbley. Jennifer Crumbley will be sentenced April 9th. We're live tonight. Sean Lee, Local 4, back to you.
Thank you, Sean.
All right, and in finding Jennifer Crumbley guilty of involuntary manslaughter, jurors had to find that she caused the students' deaths in one of two ways: failing to provide reasonable care or being grossly negligent in providing care.
That obviously has some massive implications, not just for her husband's upcoming trial, but for all parents going forward. Our Christy McDonald has been speaking with experts and joins us live from the Local 4 Plus set with more on the big takeaways from this trial. Christy?
No, Pamela, there are a lot of takeaways here, and it will impact cases around the country. And we don't know what Jennifer's sentence will be when she has that sentencing in April. So I want to bring in right now Jeff Swartz with me. He's a former prosecutor. He's a former criminal defense attorney and a former judge. He's now a professor at Cooley Law School. Jeff, it's good to see you. Go ahead and let us know, what's the precedent here? How will this conviction impact cases now around the country?
Good evening, and thank you for having me. It depends on the prosecutors and the place where they're working and what the community wants. They have the ability now to use this as a kind of persuasive precedent to say, we need to do the same thing here. This is going to be really anti-gun people who are going to move forward with this kind of thing, to place more onus on gun owners to be more careful with their guns. And I think we're going to see some backlash in other places. It's not over yet in the context of who's going to do what, but it clearly is going to affect jurisprudence around the country.
Yeah, Jeff, and one thing that runs through my mind is I'm thinking, will this impact decisions that parents are making right now, even looking around their own homes or securing weapons or thinking about what their child might be going through, or even plea deals in cases that are making its way through the courts right now?
Well, it is going to change the way parents do things. The problem that I've been saying for a while is that you cannot restrict this verdict solely to guns. This is a situation where anything that can be used as a weapon will now have to be secured within a parent's home. For example, if you've got a 16-year-old kid and you got baseball bats around, he gets angry and walks into the garage and grabs a baseball bat and beats someone to death. Are you now going to be held responsible because your kid lost his temper and grabbed a baseball bat that you probably should have secured, or a knife, or a pruning shears, or something like that? This is going to be a very difficult situation for parents who are now going to find themselves responsible for securing a lot of things and being ultra sensitive to every little mood their child shows.
Yeah, real quick, Jeff, in the time that we have left, Jennifer now has 4 counts here. When we talk about involuntary manslaughter, the max sentence for 1 count is 15 years. What can we expect to watch on sentencing for this in April?
Well, the sentences have to run concurrent. They cannot be consecutive to each other under Michigan law. So she's going to get 15 years. I have absolutely no doubt that Judge Matthews is very intent on maxing her out. It was clear from her attitude really during the trial as I was watching it. So clearly she's going to give her 15 years, and that's just going to be the sentence. That's just the way I see it.
All right. Jeff Swartz from Cooley Law School, thanks so much for joining me. And again, we'll be watching as James Crumbley goes to trial on March 5th. And of course, the sentencing of Jennifer Crumbley on April 9th. I'm going to send it back to you guys.